Hey everyone, I got a haircut. Also, there's something that I don't think I've said yet on the channel, even though I've been doing this for over a year, and it's what I do for a living. I'm a baker. I've been a baker since I was 18. And I think if you put a gun to my head and made me say what I'm an expert in, I'd have to say bread baking. I bake bread a lot better than I speak French. So I think it's high time that I talk about the origins of some of the words in baking. Let's start with all those French words that we act like makes our pastries taste better. Starting with pâte à choux. So pâte à choux is the dough that you make to make eclairs and cream puffs and stuff like that. But it literally means cabbage paste. Now, it's not because it's made with cabbage. It's because they, as in the French, think that it looks like little cabbages if you make just like a dollop of it, like for a cream puff, and it bakes and it looks all craggly on the top. It looks like a cabbage. And we just talked about that a few weeks ago, so I guess they also think it looks like a head. Anyway, those French guys, you know what they do. Then there's millefeuille, which is that pastry with the pudding in between the layers of puff pastry dough. And millefeuille literally means 1,000 leaves or layers, I guess. That makes sense because the way that you make it is you take dough and you have butter like inside of it, like packaged inside of it, basically like wrapped around it. You wrap the dough around the butter, and then you fold it a bunch of times, and then when it bakes, that butter like not evaporates, but like the water in the butter boils and it puffs up. That's fun to make, and it's difficult to make. I did it once, and it just about burned my oven. All the butter came out of my croissants. It was bad. Lastly, there's creme brulee, the most decadent of desserts, but it just means burned cream, which, that's what it is, basically. So that makes sense. It's just kind of like not an elegant way to say a dessert name. Burned cream. I have a theory that anytime that you name something fancy in French and then you translate it directly into English, it takes all the magic out. Like, it's hilarious. Go into the perfume department and it's like, Bordeaux. And it's like, for men. Like, that's just lame. Now, here's something that I totally thought was true, and it's not. That cook and cookie are related words. They're not. Cookie comes to us through Dutch. It's a diminutive of their word for cake. I think they call, if I remember, I didn't write it down. If I remember it correctly, they call cakes something like cook, and then they call cookies cookia, and then we adopted that in about 1600s, I think. And that comes from the Proto-Germanic cocoa, and that comes from the Proto-Indo-European gog, which means like a ball or a lump of something. Meanwhile, the verb cook comes to us through the Latin coccus, which comes from the Proto-Indo-European pequa, which means to cook itself, like to prepare food. So, interesting that those two words that happen in the same place are completely unrelated. Now let's talk about something that kind of ruined the rest of this video when I started looking into it. And by ruined, I mean completely derailed the rest of my plans. The Proto-Indo-Europeans didn't have bread. And I'm going to prove it. You see, if there is something in Proto-Indo-European culture, there tends to be a cognate word in most of the Indo-European languages, if not all the major ones, especially in things that are related to agriculture, like the word grain and the word corn. They're related, and then there are cognates all through. Things like horses, wheels, things that were in Proto-Indo-European culture would have cognates in all the Indo-European languages. That doesn't happen with the word bread. So our word bread has a disputed origin. It comes through us through Germanic, and it traces back to two possible different Proto-Indo-European roots. Either Peru, which means like to brew. It's also obviously related to that word. And then there's also Bera, which means to be brittle. Um, I can understand the thinking for both. I think that the brew related word is more likely to be the word that led to our word bread, because one of the big things with bread is it rises when you cook it. It puffs, even if it's unleavened. I can also see brittle if you make like a cracker type thing. I'm trying to think of like when I'm going through these. Understand that I've done research in the history of bread because that's the kind of person I am. I make it for a living. So I'm trying to think of like the first breads that would have been made, the easiest breads to make for um, Bronze Age people to Iron Age people. Um, so I could see both, but I feel like brew has more of a leg to stand on. Then we have our Romance language words for bread: pan, pane, pan. It's all related to the Latin panis, which means bread, and that comes from a Proto-Indo-European pe, which means to feed or graze. Totally different root for the same basic thing. The Slavs, or at least the Russians, have the word chlieb, and that comes from a Germanic word. So we can see that they got bread from a different Indo-European group. The Germanic word that they got it from was chliabaz, and that means, oh, sorry, chlebas, chlebats. Sorry, there's a lot of words here that I didn't stuff in my head, which has an unclear origin itself. It could come from Greek. Speaking of the Greeks, their word for bread is psomi, and that has a disputed origin itself. Might not even be Indo-European. There used to be people who connected it to some Hittite words, but there's a verb in Greek that I think is just pso, or psu, or psoa. It depends on the how you conjugate it, and it means to rub, and that makes sense because kneading bread is like rubbing it, and you need to knead bread. You need to knead bread to develop the gluten to get it to rise. So that would be an essential part of making bread. And then looking into the Indo-Aryan branch, the oldest word I could find, like there's a word roti in Hindi, and that leads to a Sanskrit word that Wiktionary didn't have any connections to that Sanskrit word. It was roti ma, I believe. I'm going to correct myself if I'm wrong. I know I have some viewers that are from India. I don't know if they watch every week. But if you know something about Sanskrit and know what rotima means and where it could have came from, I'd love to hear that. I hope it's related to roast, because that's something that is in Romance words. That would be fun. But the oldest one I could find, like hardcore information on, was the Persian word nan, which comes from the Proto-Iranian nanga, which means something that is set in the ashes. So when you're baking bread and you don't have an oven, and people were doing this until the 1700s even, you could take your dough and you could put it in the bottom of your fire in the ashes, and it's hot enough in there that it'll bake it and be surrounded by heat. And so I could totally get that. That'd be a good way to describe an early flatbread. And obviously that leads to the English word naan, which is, and that word naan is used in other Indo-Aryan languages. So now that I did all that work, I'm just going to Google, did the Proto-Indo-Europeans have bread? I just found the spiciest Wikipedia article, and I lost a half hour of my life doing it. That's part of why this video is so bread oriented, because I spent so much time looking through these charts, and I'm definitely going to have to do a video on the words that are present in every single branch of every Indo-European language that we know of, including this. This is my favorite part. It has Tocharian, it has Hittite. Those are the two dead ones. that have, the two dead branches of the Proto-Indo-European language family, of the Indo-European language family. Speaking of Hittite, Che Languages, my guy, made a video about the Hittite language family. I can't remember. Did he call it Anatolian? Let me figure it out. Where's my phone? Okay, I can't find my... Oh, my phone's way over there. I can't... Anyway, go check out this video. I'm going to link it in the description. Che did a really good job on this video. And he shouted me out, so I have to shout him back. Anyway, yeah, every time I research a video, I find another video I want to make. So I guess what I'm doing is sustainable. Oh. Speaking of videos I want to make, not next week, but next week, I'm going to make a video about city names. So comment your city name down below. It doesn't matter where it is. I'll find it. I'll figure out where its name came from. A lot of those are really spicy. There's a lot of folk etymology in that I love to dig into and see if it's got any legs to stand on. So help me out with that. And thank you for watching, Link King. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Have a great day. Bye-bye.